Good evening and welcome to another exciting time where we talk about businesses. It's the foundation of business and it's Business 101. My name is Blyden Okem. In Business 101, we talk about the key features being the principles that guides businesses and the analysis of it, the direction in businesses, and a very core foundation of it. And today we'll be looking at Naira's depreciation and its economy. The Naira rebounded against the United States dollars at the parallel market, closing at 850 per dollar. This came about days after, the concerns have been for the Naira. The Naira was sold for around 950 per dollar at the parallel market on Monday last week. It gained further to halt the Naira slide at the State House in Abuja. The CBN's acting governor, Falashodun Shinobi, said it was set to take new measures to stabilize the Naira against the dollar. Issues in the parallel market. He said the fluctuations in the parallel market were not solely driven by economic factors, but also speculative demand. The Nigerian National Petroleum Limited obtained also a $3 billion emergency loan on Wednesday last week to help stabilize the Naira. Many analysts are divided if the amount is sufficient to stabilize the local. Conversation all began when the new administration, the administration of Senator Bola Tinubu, came up with an idea, and the idea was to have a single market instead of having separate market. And what they did was to make the Naira float. And since then, the Naira has been on the decline. My guest will be standing by to give insights into the talking point. $1 billion to back up the Naira. What is the implication? What will happen next? We'll go on a quick break. When we return, the conversation continues about the state of the Naira, the fall of the Naira, the depreciation of the Naira, and its implication. Don't go anywhere.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my
this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord.
Legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country.
Destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursday.
Business exists only to meet on a platform that gives you the added advantage. Television on StarTimes DTM Television, broadening your horizon.
TV, broadening your horizon.
the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian Police Force.
No, my Lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My Lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Welcome back. It is Business 101, and my name is Blyden Ukem. Quite a long break it was, but let's get to the talking point regarding the depreciation of the Naira and the implications of it moving forward. We talked about what the CBN and NNPC had done by borrowing $3 billion to support the Naira to back it up. Despite the fact that as of July, the president had said they'd want to float the Naira. And the implication was they did not want a double market or currency exchange for the Naira. And Naira was more or less a free-floating currency. It backfired and went down. And today we analyze the very fine details regarding this. My guest joins the conversation now, Abel Udi. He's a chartered accountant and a banker. Mr. Abel Udi, it's a pleasure to have you.
Good evening, it's been my pleasure.
Always a pleasure to have you. How did the day go?
Well, fine. And how did yours go as well?
Absolutely fantastic. Well, good to have you again. The last time you were on the show, we talked about the Naira depreciation at that point, and you quite actually defended the Naira. But since then till now, when we spoke, it was within the range of 700 and something Naira to 950 Naira to $1. But the federal government, the CBN, and the NNPC.
Thank you for having me once again, Blyden. Well, my position on the Naira float is such that Nigeria cannot afford to support the Naira on the long term. And the truth is, we are not getting and that is the reason why it became a necessity for the federal government under the current president to try its hand on the float. However, like every policy, most policies are two-edged swords. There will be some positives and there will be some negatives.
Yes.
And just like of the Naira, which led to its depreciation, will have its effect on inflation and the cost of goods. And it has so happened. And we saw the CBN, the NNPC, saying they borrowed $3 billion from the Afri-Exim Bank to defend the Naira. I think, but for me, I think that's a separate transaction because the senior special assistant to the president, I think Otega or Gra, has said that is not a sovereign borrowing, and I don't see the nexus between that particular borrowing and the CBN. Because I think that borrowing is actually to finance NNPC's operations, its cash obligations to its joint venture operators, and I think the federal government is just trying to use that particular borrowing to as a PR tool. However, I think we have a long way to go with this policy.
Okay.
The federal government should look at ways of trying to stem the tide of depreciation because it is hurting the people, and look at some interventions into the investor and exporter window to allocate the available FX to critical sectors such that we don't have a runoff of pricing, which will affect majority of us.
All right, let me ask this because you seem to find a solution to it and what the federal government should do and CBN should do in the long run. But First of all, it's disappointing that the policy never really seemed to work out from that standpoint based on the outcome we've seen. So the question would be, what really went wrong? Because I remember the last show we had, you talked positively about it, you believed in it. There's no point supporting the Naira because you can't support the Naira for that long. And so far,
sure,
not easy to say so good, because when you say so far, most often you add so good. It's not the story. What really went wrong?
Now, the question is, if you, JP Morgan released a report this afternoon, yesterday, on the state of the Naira, of the Naira and the economy as a whole.
The Forex Reserve.
And you see that there is investor confidence in the country, with the withdrawal of subsidy and the they were fixing the price of PMS, and there was an attempt to stem the tide of the Naira against, try to have a managed float. You can see that the Eurobond, Nigeria's foreign bonds, the price went down, which shows the investing public actually is looking at the country. And like I said, I defended the float because on the long term, it is not sustainable for an economy like Nigeria to fix its currency, a very weak currency, at 450 Naira. We'll spend all our efforts defending a currency while the majority of us might not feel the impact of governance. And the foreign investors will look at the quality of Nigeria's ministers. The president had just appointed ministers. They are yet to get to work. So it will take time for us to feel the impact of these policies. For me, I think maybe the implementation of these policies came too fast, or maybe it shouldn't have been applied simultaneously. Maybe we should have had one before the other. But
when you say simultaneously, what are you referring to?
Removing subsidies,
okay,
and at the same time floating the exchange
rate. I needed to be clear on that.
Was simultaneous. Where the impact was actually very significant on Nigerians. However, we also look at the flip side of it. You understand? Do we want to have an exchange rate where we have multiple markets in Nigeria? Before the unified exchange rate system that we have now, the investor and exporter window, we had 3 or 4 different official windows where you could buy FX at the BTA window for 430 or 440. You could buy at the import investor and exporter window at 465. You could buy at the SME market for 420. You see, it allows room for a lot of arbitrage. So now we have one window. And the reason why we're still having the parallel market, soaring, is the fact that, look, the supply at the CBN is limited to what businessmen, you and I, parents paying school fees, okay, small businesses. The supply is not just there, and like I told you, now the question is, I wouldn't want to dwell on where the supply to the parallel market is coming from. However, as a CBN, I want to dwell on the CBN aspect and blighting.
Okay,
now
go ahead.
The issue is that the major source of inflow of FX inflow into the CBN is from oil and gas. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that our FX comes primarily, 90% of our FX comes primarily from what? Crude oil revenue, petroleum profit tax, and the likes. While this same FX that comes in through one source will also fund the bulk of our FX goes back into what? Buying refined petroleum products and supporting industry.
Yes.
You understand? So if 60% of our FX that we earn from crude oil goes back to buying refined petroleum products, and the remaining 40% goes to other segments of the economy, we'll have a supply problem. Definitely. So in hindsight, where we get our crude oil from, our FX from, is where we spend our FX on. So it's simply a case of Nigeria selling cassava, you understand, and getting FX. and buying Gary with the same FX. And we expect that other segments of the economy will not have issues, will not have a shortfall.
All right, so Mr. Bell, let me give a direction. Mr. Bell, let me give a direction to that conversation, one way or the other, especially looking at our trade balance at the last outing or the last outcome as at March 2023. Nigeria recorded Naira, and exports, we had more exports than import as at March, and the import was 2.284 billion Naira. Oil exports stood at 1.829 billion Naira, and non-oil exports 455 million Naira. And it forms a conversation that you're talking about. We understand yet until that Nigeria gets to import more after getting lots of money from their forex reserve from crude oil. But on the other hand, when you look at the picture in March, we were on a surplus, 908 million Naira surplus.
Now the FX also goes into what? Other payments. And some of these payments include commitments of the CBN on forward contracts, swaps, forward contract features, derivatives, that mature on a daily basis or monthly basis. Also, FX also goes into what? Loan repayments of federal government, loan obligations.
Yes.
To sustain our credit ratings as a country, we need to meet up with our loan obligations. And on a monthly basis, there are loans that falls due. Apart from supporting the economy, federal government must pay up on its debt to ensure that we maintain a good rate. You can easily borrow to ensure we stabilize our economy pending when revenues come. So if you look at the March report is something it's not a consistent thing in the economy. Oftentimes you always have a deficit, and if you factor in contracts that CBN has and loan repayment of the federal loan obligation of the federal government and even some state governments at the same time, you realize that and if you look at the recently released CBN 2020 annual report, you also see that Nigeria has a lot of obligations on its balance sheet. The CBN has a lot of obligations on its balance sheet against our external reserves, which shows, look, on a net basis, Nigeria has limited reserves. You understand? And if we have limited reserves, we need to be practical. Because I was in a forum and I asked a simple question. You see, monetary policy and fiscal policies work. However, they work to the extent that there is production. China today, they don't have currency volatility, stable exchange, stable inflation rate. It is because the country is producing. We have a comparative advantage. We have crude oil. We can buy the technology and reduce cost at home and export both crude oil and refined products. If we make money over some time, over a period of time, we can diversify into economies and into other sectors of the economy and grow it. That way, we'll solve the supply and the demand problem. Because if we refine locally, if we refine petroleum products locally, we would not be buying crude, for instance, in USD. CBN, the Federal Republic of Nigeria, can sell the direct crude allocation, 445,000 barrels of crude oil to local refineries in USD, in Naira rather, at the USD equivalent, because we don't spend dollar in Nigeria. That alone will reduce the pressure on the Naira, while these refineries will source for USD to buy inputs. Wages will be in Naira. We will not pay freight charges in USD. Such way will eliminate some form of demand on the Naira. And when we sell these refined products, we sell to our West African neighbors in USD as well. We'll make money. We'll solve the supply problem with the same policy. So if we are not a producing nation, no matter the monetary policy or the fiscal policy, let me take an example of Ghana. Ghana did what we call redenomination, struck off a few zeros of their currency, without solving the underlying problem of getting Ghanaians working or Ghanaians being productive and export and earn this FX from multiple sources. Yeah. So for me, my argument still remains that, look, we cannot continue to defend the Naira. However, we must solve the demand and the supply problem within a very short period of time. And in doing that, we must look at our quick wins. If it is oil and gas, on the supply and demand issue we're having with FX currently.
Okay. One other talking point would be this. Recently, in fact, today we heard in the news, in line with what the acting CBN governor had said recently, that most of the funds coming in from Nigerians abroad, remittances from Nigerians abroad, have not been passing through the right channels, CBN, but most online platforms, and being diverted to the parallel market. And the conversation now would be near. Since CBN are struggling to have lots of forex reserves, we also heard the JP Morgan outing and report yesterday, and he said that based on the statistics of $10 billion, adding this to the conversation, we've also heard that CBN has been borrowing to add up to the forex reserve, and this is quite concerning. So now talking about remittances from Nigerians abroad, how does this get to work? Because the governor was saying, the acting governor was saying, there's a diversion into the market. Bureau de change operators are saying, surely there's a diversion into the parallel market. And while the president said we need to have a unified exchange rate, a unified exchange market, so far it's not really worked out. The price at the parallel market is at 700, 800 plus, 880, 870 naira to $1 as of today, while the international and exchange window is saying 770 or 767 naira to $1. So the exchange rate, the different exchange rate continues. So how can the CBN stop this?
Yeah, and the issue is that with the existence of the parallel market, you can't stop Nigerians, from taking their monies from banks and selling to black market operators at a premium. It's virtually impossible.
Okay.
Now, there was a time when the CBN, was giving